The time has finally come. We're gonna learn what is arguably the hardest pour. My teeth are so yellow, oh my god. The hollow heart. Let's get started, you dirty scumbags. Before we get started into the hollow heart, I would love to ask if you don't mind taking a second. It is my birthday. If you want to hit that subscribe button and give me a birthday present, as in a subscription and your patronage, that'd be great. Or if you're already subscribed, you just leave a comment. Don't say happy birthday. That's not original, right? Something original, like avocados only taste good when you're near a campfire, or raccoons celebrate Christmas, or flying squirrels can only fly whenever no one is looking at them. They're very shy. They don't want to be seen. The hollow heart is not for the faint of heart. The hollow heart is the antithesis of traditional latte art. It takes what latte art is and it flips it on its head. What's up is down and what's down is suddenly up. I think it's one of the coolest designs that you can learn. And even if you're a beginner and this is a little too advanced for you, I recommend you watch it because you're gonna see things that are gonna be later in your latte art journey and it's gonna help you get there. The hollow heart starts its journey in the 2014-2015 era, created by a man in Japan named Yusuke Ota. Yusuke is a huge inspiration to me. He was in coffee before I ever got into coffee, and by the time I did get into coffee, the hollow heart was already created by him and had been used in competition. As far as I know, Yusuke is the originator of all that we know for hollow hearts. He is the one who made it happen, and pretty quickly after he made it happen, started competing with it, which is really impressive. Yusuke is the inventor of the empty heart, and you may have noticed I said empty heart and not hollow heart, and that is because Yusuke himself named this pour an empty heart. He refers to this pour as the empty heart. He does not refer to it as the hollow heart. And the way I see that whole thing, as this video is titled The Hollow Heart, and most of society calls it the hollow heart, I think that words change. And I think that in society, evolution of words is okay. For example, you have GIF and GIF. It's supposed to be GIF, but it's called GIF, and society kind of agreed that that was what they wanted to do. Let me know which one you like below, empty or hollow. If you want to check out Yusuke's profile, it's quite beautiful. You can go down to the link in the description. Now let's get into how to actually make the hollow heart work, because there are a couple of prerequisites that you need. First prerequisite that you need to make hollow hearts is you gotta know how to steam milk, baby. The milk is just a little bit too foamy, you will not be able to execute the hollow heart. If you don't know how to steam milk, I got a video right here for you to learn how to steam milk. So what you need is a proper espresso machine or something that's gonna produce a really good steam. You can have a separate steam wand as long as it is powerful enough to actually give you good textured milk, and you know how to texture milk. It's very important. The next thing you need to know is how to form a base layer or how to form a frame layer. And if you don't know how to do that, I have videos on that as well. But essentially you need to be able to create an entire base, so a wing base, or you need to be able to create a frame layer. So the kind of layers that we make when we make tulips. I know what you want. You want the juice. You want those sweet, juicy secrets of the hollow heart. And I'll tell you the secrets of the hollow heart. The secret of the hollow heart. I'm sorry, I'm yawning. It's height. It's just height. Essentially, it's just that you're gonna pour from a little bit higher. Like I said earlier, the hollow heart is the antithesis of normal latte art, meaning if we're trying to get close to the surface to create some kind of foam on top of foam, well, the hollow heart is gonna be above the surface so that all the foam that would have been there is gonna sink. That is the whole plot. The second secret to the hollow heart is having slightly thinner milk, not thin milk. You don't want your milk to not be able to move around, but you do not want that traditional creamy cafe milk. The problem with that is it has too much foam when you're pouring with it, and it's not gonna slip underneath the surface no matter how high you pour. So take your normal creamy texture and just go a slight bit less than that, and you should be in the right spot. I'll show you an example right here. Notice how this milk is not thick and it is not thin, but it is a little bit thinner than a traditional creamy cappuccino would be. And if the goal is to get the foam underneath the surface, well, we gotta work quickly and we can't have any extra foam there or it's gonna stay on top. Now there are a bunch of different ways to pour a hollow or empty heart. There is the wing hollow where you create the hollow within the wing of the pour. There is the keyhole where the hollow is created as a subsequent layer somewhere in your design, which kind of makes it look like you're looking into a keyhole because that hollow is the missing spot of a keyhole. And there's also a framed hollow, so a hollow that is basically just a frame or 2 frames or 3 frames or more. Each of these pours are going to get their own dedicated video on this channel. Today we're going to talk about my favorite one, which is the wing hollow. If you're not able to make a fully developed wing layer, what you can do instead is do what the originator did and create a framed layer like we did in our tulip video, and then follow that frame with a long ripple. That's going to create a similar shape to the wing base. Whichever one you decide, it's important that if you do a wing style that you have some kind of outward border. That's why I really love doing a push base, where I land the pitcher down, I let a little bit of milk develop, creating that mushroom cloud Oppenheimer look, and then slinging it forward and following it with the ripples. And then as the ripples develop, I move the pitcher forward for those last 3 or 4 ripples. That frame is very important, whether you do it in the wing base or you do it as a separate frame, because it's what's going to end up being the cradle for your hollow heart. If you don't have that frame, well, then your hollow heart will exist, but it'll kind of blur out into the edges of your wing and it won't look as good. You might have already heard me say it, but you need to move that pitcher forward as you're finishing that ripple, because what it's going to do is it's going to fill in the bottom of your wing, which we 1 want, and 2, it's going to create what I call the hollow triangle. And that triangle is going to be the shape that we're going to manipulate into the heart. Why this triangle is important is because at the top of the triangle is where we're going to aim whenever we're trying to make the hollow shape. There's a couple rules about where you're going to aim. If you aim above this flat line, you're going to have to hold the pitcher there longer, because as you're holding the pitcher to create the hollow, the wings around are going to take a longer time to get sucked into that flow of milk. Versus if you went way under the line. If you start that pour under the line, they're going to immediately wrap. This is that same concept of wrapping a layer like we normally do. The closer you are to the layer, the faster it's going to wrap. The further you are, the longer you have to hold that layer, as in pouring that milk, to get that layer to actually follow and move in. If you land exactly on that line, you won't have to hold it for as long. I typically hold it for about a 1-second beat. You're also going to notice that if you go above the line, your hollow heart is going to be more rounded and it's going to be larger in its overall size. You're also going to need to use more force to get that base to move. Whereas if you go under the line, your hollow heart is going to be tinier, it's going to be a little bit sharper, and it's going to take way less force, so you can use a lot less milk if you wanted to do that part of the design. Say you wanted a little heart in the middle of your pour, in the middle of your base, you could just go right over that spot and dump some milk on there, and it should make the hollow heart, assuming you're high enough above the surface and your milk is good. The other problem with hollow hearts is the longer you hold the layer, the more foam is going to start to appear. I'm going for stark brown on white. That means I don't want to hold the layer there too long, or foam is going to start to appear from underneath. When you're aiming for the hollow heart, something you got to keep in mind is that when a pitcher is pouring, it's pouring in front of itself about 1 centimeter or 2. So if you're aiming at the top of the base, or above that or below that, you're actually going to want to be 1 centimeter above or below where you're actually trying to aim. The next most important thing is the height. Like I mentioned before, you've got to go higher to prevent any foam from floating on the surface. If you go too high, you're going to create bubbles, and you're going to lose the forward momentum coming out of your pitcher. When you pour a pitcher, you're getting forward flow because the milk is moving forward in a laminar flow. If you go higher and higher and higher, it's going to drop straight down, which you'd think is good for a hollow, but what's actually going to happen is it's going to pull your layer in almost like a triangle. We don't want an actual triangle, we want a triangle that gets sucked in and becomes a heart. That comes from that forward momentum. There is no specific height you necessarily need. It's going to be dependent on your pitcher, the milk, the espresso base you're pouring into, and a bunch of other variables, but you want to go just high enough that you're not leaving any white on the surface, but you're still getting the effect of that forward flow. Next, to have a proper hollow, what you're really going to need is good coffee. You can do a hollow heart in foam on foam milk. You could do it in cocoa powder and all those things. But if you want that stark contrast, you have to use good coffee. And the coffee I'm using is from today's sponsor, Trade. Trade reached out and said that I could give you guys a free bag of coffee if you signed up today using the link in my description. That's literally free coffee if you want it. Since I've switched to Trade, it's actually been a super big relief on my life. I no longer have to go into the city to get coffee. I can have the coffee delivered to my door, and it's usually delivered right as I'm running out of my last bag. And Trade does a very unique thing where they're able to tailor your experiences based on your interests in coffee. So whether you have a routine and you like a specific set of beans and you want to keep that coming, or you want to get experimental and try something you've never had before, Trade's got you covered. Anyway, scumbags, if you're interested in learning more about Trade, you can click the link down in the description below. Again, free bag of coffee if you want it. Now that we've learned about all these fundamentals of the hollow heart, we've got the flow rate, we've got the height, we've got aiming in the right place, we've got the reaction of if you aim too high, too low. Let's bring it all together and let's go ahead and do a pour from start to finish. All right, let's bring this whole thing home. The first thing we're gonna do is integrate into the deepest part of the cup, which is the center of the cup. Next, we're gonna be creating our frame layer or our wing base. I'm gonna be doing a wing base. And like I always do, I'm gonna do a push base by landing my spout directly into the center of the cup, letting it pause just a beat to develop a frame and then nudging that frame forward. Then you're gonna follow it with a sequence of ripples until you start to see the base edge up towards your pitcher. And once you start to see the base come up to your pitcher, you can begin moving forward with your final ripples, setting yourself up for your hollow triangle. Now that we're ready to go, we're gonna get our pitcher about 1 centimeter in front of where we want to land with our triangle. We're gonna raise our pitcher between 1 and 3 inches, and we're going to lean forward with our pitcher, increasing our flow rate. You're going to cut up as soon as the hollow is finished. Remember, the longer you hold it, the more white will appear. Now that the hardest part is over, we just have to make sure the rest doesn't mess it up. Lay your pitcher at the very top of the cup and give it a light wiggle if there is not enough foam to encourage a bit more foam to stick. Then we're going to gently lift our pitcher up and away and through the middle, hovering over any beige parts that we may have caused during our hollow, and then cutting up at the very end. Now let's watch that again with no slow-mo in real time. Before you go off and you say, oh, Emily, I can't do it, I'm never gonna be able to do the hollow heart, I just wanna ask you, please keep practicing. This is one of the hardest pours that you can learn to do. And once you get it down, even when you get the muscle memory down, it can still be very dependent on so many other little things. And sometimes at the home cafe, it's hard to get all those things in line. But I believe in you, you dirty scumbag. I think you can do it. I bet you could do it right now. I'll bet you $10 you can do. If you're not done hanging out with me, my yummy scummies, all you gotta do is click this video right here and we can keep this party going all night long. Cheers, you dirty, filthy, lovely people of my life. Cheers.